FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
At the recent Agri-Pulse Farm Bill Summit, the chairs and ranking members of the House and Senate Agriculture Committees gave their thoughts on farm policy and the upcoming Farm Bill. Here's some of their remarks.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much for the introduction. It's good to be with everybody this afternoon. I appreciate that. Given that Kiki de la Garza was famous for that submarine story and how few of you raised your hands, a couple of things. One, shows how quickly this whole process turns over. That so few of you knew Kiki, but he could stretch that story out for about a half an hour. I will not do that. The punchline, though, was at the end of the long narrative as to the question was, how long can a submarine stay underwater, a nuclear submarine stay underwater? And those of you who heard the story, don't shout it out, until they run out of food. All right, so, all right, Kiki did a whole Kiki de la Garza did that a whole lot better. He passed last week after having served a long time in the House. We appreciate his influence on our committee, and the work that we still do is still evident. And the few of you that were around the Ryan Luther and others that were in there who raised their hand, having heard that story's extended version, which must have been a lot funnier, we'll appreciate what he did. Oh, by the way, the questions that you send in, no requirement that you put your name on them, but do recognize that my wife, Suzanne Conaway, is in the front row down here. So whatever you ask me to, don't be mean when you ask the questions, because she gets her feelings hurt on my behalf real quickly. So we'll appreciate everybody being there. I'll make a few comments, and then I'd really rather answer your questions and move forward. You'll have three other leaders from the Senate and the House be speaking with you later on this afternoon. I'm glad I get to go first, because you'll have not heard it over and over and over for 4 times by the time I got to talk to you about that. Pat Roberts is going to lead the Sonny Perdue effort to get him confirmed as our Secretary of Ag. We really need the Secretary of Ag in place, and I'm hopeful that the Senate will move expeditiously on getting Sonny's confirmation process done, the hearing, and then across the Senate floor so he can get in place over at USDA. With the President's announced budget last week, every executive agency out there has things that they need to be doing, and Sonny's going to have to lead that effort with respect to the President's proposed budget for USDA and the impact that it has on that. We'll also, obviously, the appropriations process, Congress, everybody, there'll be a lot of folks chewing what the President proposed over the next several months for the fiscal 18 budget. But that really needs a leader over at the USDA, and I'm anxious to get Sonny in place. I think that based on my conversations with him, we'll work well together as we get this 2018 Farm Bill done. President supports a strong Farm Bill. He supports getting it done on time, as do I. And we haven't done one on time in 16 years. Those of you that have been around a while and who enjoy the drama of expiring farm bills or short-term extensions or the threat of permanent law coming in, if you love that drama, I'm hopeful you're going to need to go to a different theater this year, because we're not going to do that. I won't know any more in October of 18 than I do in September of 18, and human nature is to put it off. You absolutely have to make the decision. Let's don't do that human nature thing. Let's get it done on time. Those of you that are with producer groups and others who have policy ideas, get those started now so that we can have it take advantage of longer lead time to be able to fold those into what we're going to get done, whether it's specialty crops, as I mentioned, or the farm credits, across that breadth of the Farm Bill. If you have policy initiatives, don't wait until we've gotten the bill written to come up with that brand new good idea. Get your folks moving now, as the committees get moving now. We've had our subcommittee hearings that have been at it. All 6 of them will hold at least 2 hearings in March and April on their jurisdiction within the Farm Bill. They'll then have May and June to have additional hearings if the subcommittee chairman's got some ideas that they want to flush out that would add to their or within their areas of jurisdiction. We'll start soon having our listening sessions around the country, traditional field hearings A real CCB to Mills effort that we're going to avoid doing that. It costs a lot of money to drag the TV equipment and all that gear around the country, and so we won't do it that way. We'll have listening sessions. We'll transcribe those listening sessions so that they will be a part of the permanent record, a part of the record of what we're getting done. We want to hear as we move around the country, not only from the local leadership of the various producer groups, we want to hear from rank and file, the folks who are living every day with the Farm Bill in its current configuration. How's it working? How's it not working? Are there things that could be done better within that Farm Bill? We want to hear that. The nutrition title will be, hopefully we'll get some testimony there as well as we listen to folks who are either administrating the SNAP program or benefiting from the SNAP program or have some ideas they want to share with us. So we'll move that across the rest of the summer into the early fall. I'm expecting that sometime in 2018, Kevin McCarthy, our leader, will tell me a week during the calendar that I could get the Farm Bill on the floor. Once he does that, then I'll trigger a calendar that will have the markup about a week or 10 days before that process. So whatever time that is between when he tells me and that point, we will actually put pencil to paper and get the new Farm Bill written. I need, as I mentioned earlier, I need your good ideas in before we do that. So you've got the rest of calendar 17, because I wouldn't anticipate that I'll have any kind of floor time until sometime in the early 2018 timeframe. Once that's triggered, the House Ag Committee will be ready. We'll have had all our work done, and we'll be ready to go to work to put that one together to make that happen. The 2014 Farm Bill was written against a backdrop of really pretty good times in production agriculture, as many of the producers in the room will remember. There really were some good old times for production agriculture. The last 3-4 years has been a 50% drop in production net farm incomes across our country, the worst drop since the Depression. Now, those questions that were asked in 2014 as to why you need a safety net will now get answered pretty easily against the backdrop of the 18 work. I don't anticipate the economics of production agriculture getting any better over the next 2 years, and so consequently it'll be much easier to explain to the American people why it's important that we have good farm policy and have a program in place. We've got a great story to tell. The 2014 bill was supposed to spend about $23 billion less than the previous bills. The last estimate was coming out in January of this year. We'll actually spend over the 10-year time, if we left it in place, the 10-year time frame, 17 through 26, we'll spend $100 billion less than that. So 4 times what we thought we were saving or not spending coming out of the 14 Farm Bill, which is what we actually did. Now, much of that is reduction in the natural reduction, folks, on food stamps, but even our income support programs are under the mark on the CBO's mark. And so we've got a great story to tell. You add that to the huge cuts to crop insurance since 2008, both direct cuts and the renegotiation, all the things that went on over the last 8 or 9 years with respect to crop insurance. I can argue with a straight face that production agriculture is given at the office, so to speak. Now, we're going to continue to be respectful of the taxpayers of this country, understanding that we've got $19 trillion in debt. All those kind of things are never far from any of our minds. But by the same token, we need a strong farm bill. We need the resources necessary to write that farm bill. And I'm going to be lobbying the Budget Committee, lobbying the President, lobbying anybody who'll listen that we need those resources to be able to write that 2018 Farm Bill, excuse me. The normal coalition of SNAP recipients and supporters and production agriculture, there will be those who want to try to split the Farm Bill and argue about moving those separately. Quite frankly, I don't necessarily see the advantages to doing that. I am committed 110% to getting them both authorized on time before the 2018 trigger comes up. If the easiest way to get that done would be to split them into 2 pieces and move them separately, then why wouldn't we do that? But I don't hear anybody talking about doing that who isn't intent on killing the Farm Bill part. They don't really think they can kill SNAP, but I think they could kill the Farm Bill part. And I'm spectacularly uninterested in those kind of conversations. So in all likelihood, we'll be together, but we'll have that conversation. It's process. It's not policy. It's process, and I'm committed to getting the process through to making it happen. The normal coalitions are there. I got asked by a reporter several months ago, who else can come to the table to help us get this thing done? And it occurred to me that anybody who eats ought to be at the table. production agriculture, you've heard over and over that mantra that the American consumer enjoys the safest, most abundant, and affordable food and fiber supply of any developed nation in the world. That kind of rolls off our tongue, but let's focus on that affordable piece. We all like getting a deal. Most of us do anyway. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time you eat at a restaurant, you get a deal. Now, you don't necessarily know you're getting a deal, and most folks certainly don't know why they're getting a deal. So I'm going to deputize everyone in the room, including those of you in the media, that we've got to engage that broad group of coalition out there of folks who eat every day or would like to eat every day as to why we need a good farm policy. Because you can hate the current policy or you can love the current policy. It delivers the most affordable food supply of any developed nation in the country. Why on earth would I, as a part of the 18 Farm Bill, want to screw that up? And I don't intend to screw that up. Now, if you divided the economic ladder into fifths, the top 20% people spend more on food than the bottom 20% makes in disposable income. Let that settle in. So my focus will be on that bottom half, because that bottom half really cares what food costs. Now, the top half, they're buying organic, they're all kind of good things. They don't really, the food prices don't really impact them at all, their day-to-day lives. That bottom half does. And so I'm thinking about that mom who at the end of the month is trying to find the best calories she can, what money she's got left to feed her kids. And I do not want to make her job any tougher than it already is. And I need your help engaging her and everybody else in that bottom 50%, because quite frankly, they don't have a lot of voices in the mix. There's not a broad coalition of eaters out there and below the 50, the halfway down the economic food chain. So that group's got to be engaged as to why it's important that we maintain a strong production agriculture system, that strong production agriculture system drives a profitable rural America, and that and on and on. So I appreciate the comments that the farm credit system had in terms of infrastructure, whether it's the farm to market system that drove Texas agriculture to be what it is today versus or broadband internet, all those kind of good things are helpful. But at the end of the day, I've got to keep production farmers in business doing what they do best, and that's the most abundant and affordable food and fiber supply of any developed nation in the world. That's going to be the job, and I'm going to be thinking about that mom out there who uses her food budget to flex. Her house payment doesn't change, her car payment doesn't change. Her food budget is where she has to flex. So if she's got an unexpected expense during the month, it comes out of her food budget. And I do not, under any circumstance, want to make her job any harder than it already is. So,
I don't know how much I can tell you about where we are with the Farm Bill at this point. We've started to have hearings. We have started to have meetings with the different folks that are affected by the bill. They've started to come in and tell us what they think should be done and should not be done, and so forth. I was expecting that we were going to be probably dealing with some financial difficulties and so forth at this point, but we were saved by probably a record crop last year. So the prices weren't that good, but we had the best crop that we've ever had in our part of the world, and I think pretty much all over the country. And so we didn't have people in financial difficulties that some of us thought might happen. And we'll see what ends up happening with prices as we go forward, but I'm a little bit afraid that we're one bad crop away from a problem, but we'll see. Having said all of that, the main thing that's going to tell a story, I guess the chairman maybe talked about this, is whatever ends up happening with the budget and where we head with that. The president's budget is probably not a good way to start off. Having a 21% cut in agriculture is causing, the good news is it'll be ignored, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But I think that to some extent reflects the fact that we didn't have a secretary at the table advocating, and so they ended up doing some things that don't make any sense because I don't think they knew any better, but we'll see. We have saved, over $100 billion from what was projected when we passed the 2014 bill. So I think we deserve a little bit extra money to solve some of the problems that we have. I think we're going to end up having a bill that looks very much like what we had in 2014. and we can, I think, live with that. There's 3 areas that I'd like to see us do some work on. One of them is cotton. Obviously, something has to be done for cotton, and I've been working with them. I support them to get a fix to work for that industry. And these generic bases that were created that caused problems in other sectors of agriculture. If we would have done planted acres like Frank Lucas and I wanted, we wouldn't have had that problem, but that's another story. So we need to do something there. We need to tweak the margin protection program in dairy. You know, there's some ideas out there on how we can make this program more effective and get more participation. Some of them a lot more expensive than others. And so to some extent, it's going to depend on what ends up happening with the budget there as well. But there's, for the smaller producers, there's a fix that is not that expensive that can get this thing working considerably better, in my opinion. The other thing is something that's kind of to some extent, my pet project, and that is to do something about CRP. Last time we reduced the acres to 24 million acres. Myself and Dave Knobson from Pheasants Forever, which were working on that, we agreed to that because at the time, with the prices being what they were and the land coming out of production, we were going to head to 24 million acres anyway. And if we wouldn't have dropped the cap from 32 to 24, that $6.5 billion would have just disappeared, the way the budget situation works. So we were able to capture that money and put it into conservation to do things with CSP and equip and some other areas that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Now, with prices coming down and people's attitudes changing, now all of a sudden people want to get back into CRP. And we have the continuous, which continues to grow significantly more in relationship to what the general sign-up is. And in my opinion, that was not how this was designed to start with. So I'm interested in getting back to big tract CRP like we had at the beginning of this program. It worked. It created tremendous wildlife benefits, other kinds of benefits for conservation, water quality. And the biggest reason it worked for us in wildlife is it spread the predators out. And that has been the best thing we could have done for all the different wildlife species. So I've been working on looking at reforming the system. I think we're paying too much money. I think we have gotten carried away with these boutique mixes that we're planting that cost $700 an acre, and then you can't get them to grow after that. So I think we need to simplify this program. We need to go back to more of what we did back when we started. We need to allow for management of those acres, which has been a problem. And I think we need to put some caps on what we're paying so we are not inadvertently competing with young farmers and other people that want to farm the land. And we still don't have all the land into CRP that should be there, and we still have land that's in CRP that should be farmed. And we still haven't gotten that fixed because I think we've gotten off on tangents with all this continuous stuff and all these different practices. CP, I don't know how many of them there are that have been created by all these different groups that have come into USDA. So I am for, I don't know if you can get rid of those, but I am for putting a halt to some of this stuff. Now we've created safe acres, so now we're allowing the state DNRs to decide how to spend our money, and all this other stuff that we're doing, I just think doesn't make any sense. So I've been doing quite a bit of work on this. I'm going to be bringing forward some reforms, and I don't know if we can get to 40 million acres or not, but I'd like to see us do that.
It's always wonderful to share a podium with my other three colleagues, with Collin, I think, who had to run out. And what he didn't talk about, he plays a mean guitar. Everybody knows that, right? So that's an additional positive thing. We actually both really love music. So, but thanks very much, Sarah. And I know you've heard from Congressman, our chairman, Conaway, earlier, and that Senator Roberts will be coming soon. I feel like the Agriculture Committee, certainly in the Senate, is really the place where Senator Roberts and I try to keep a cone of bipartisanship. We try to just focus and work together on agriculture and food policy, and try to avoid some of the challenges and tensions that are around in other kinds of committees. And I really feel that we will be able to do that again in the coming year and a half, and that we're going to be able to get another farm bill, which is so important. I also did want to comment the wonderful rural development panel as I was coming in, just to indicate, as somebody who grew up in a small town in northern Michigan, in Clare, and who was involved in 4-H, and not FFA, but in 4-H and small animals and photography and cooking and all those wonderful things that 4-H brings, and leadership and debating and so on. And watching friends of mine, I was back there on Saturday for a big St. Patrick's Day celebration. We are partners with Clare County, Ireland, and so St. Patrick's Day is a very big, important weekend for us in Clare. But so many of my friends who have stayed and farmed or opened small businesses in Clare, who want very much for their children, if they've gone away to college, to be able to come home and be able to step up in the farm or the business, or just be home in a small town called Clare, and how important it is that what we do through rural development, supporting infrastructure, supporting broadband so you can be home in a small town like Clare and connect to the rest of the world. So critical. All the things that create quality of life for us. It's very, very important that we be working together to make sure that is available, so that we can benefit from all of the wonderful things like what I benefited from in terms of the values of growing up in a small town where everybody knew everybody, which sometimes as a kid I didn't really like, actually. but the truth is, it's very important, I think, to maintain, both from a quality of life standpoint, but from an economic standpoint as well, the support for small towns. I'm very proud of what we did in the last Farm Bill, and as all of you have heard us say so many times, you could probably repeat it. We voluntarily cut $23 billion out of our own programs, something that wasn't done before, and I haven't seen done since, of a committee in their own jurisdiction trying to help contribute to bringing down the deficit and being fiscally responsible. And we were able to combine or eliminate 100 different programs, also not something that we see in other departments, in other committees. It is incredibly important now, from our perspective, that be recognized as we look at this budget and go into the next Farm Bill. We believe agriculture has done its part, and that now, as there are challenges in prices, as we all know about, challenges as it relates to supporting the farm safety net, we need to be able to do that. We don't have an economy unless somebody grows something. I believe we don't have an economy unless somebody grows something and makes something. And that's what we do in Michigan. We grow things and we make things. And then somebody adds value to it. And that's how you have a middle class, and that's how you have an economy. And so it's incredibly important that we support those who have the riskiest job in the world, which is somebody who's getting up every day, no matter what it looks like outside, and trying to figure out how to grow things and make sure we have the safest, most affordable, most abundant food supply, which we do, in the world. So when we look at the budget, let me just talk a moment about that, and then about the upcoming Farm Bill. We've seen challenges before. Senator Roberts and I joined together when there was a legislative effort to cut crop insurance by $3 billion, and when the Obama administration was looking at cutting crop insurance and so on. We banded together, and we stopped that. I expect that all of us, all of the leaders, will band together again to stop the cuts that have been proposed in the Trump budget. We are in a situation where we are seeing a department proposal of 21% cut, the third largest of any department. And what worries me is that we were the last to get a cabinet secretary nominee, and we're now moving through the process as quickly as we can. We've gotten the paperwork as the end of last week. We're doing the nomination hearing on Thursday. We need a secretary of agriculture, and then we need deputies and undersecretaries and a full team to be able to help us successfully write a farm bill and be able to move forward. And we are united in working together to be able to make that happen. But a 21% cut in the discretionary budget is not going to allow us to be able to do that. And when we look at the panel on rural development and the fact that what was proposed is zeroing out rural water and sewer infrastructure and rural small business loans. I do regular small business visits, small business tour around Michigan. I've had the opportunity to be in more than 60 different locations talking with folks. Many have gotten capital to start or expand their business through rural development. And it's incredibly important that we be able to maintain that in terms of jobs. And I know I'm sure you've already looked at this, but we are looking at a target of over 100 different programs in USDA that could be impacted. And if you look at the budget not specifically laid out, we're looking at an average of 33% cuts in things like local offices that employ thousands of people to help to be able to administer programs. Ag research, not exactly a frill in agriculture. It's incredibly important that we be able to do what needs to be done in ag research, wildlife prevention, forest management, efforts to curb avian flu, and other areas as well. So we will come together and we will work together to have a better budget. My concern is that usually if someone starts negotiating from zero, they want to end up with a big cut, just not zero. And I don't think we should be doing that in agriculture. And so we will need your help, frankly, to tell the story and define what, in fact, these dollars do for quality of life, for support, for critical tools for farmers, and what difference they make so that we can successfully push back. I want to thank everybody in the room who signed, over 500 different groups who put together the wonderful letter saying we should not have cuts in the budget. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who worked so hard on that. And we now need that next step of a letter's great, not sufficient. So we have to have everybody engaging at this point in time. Now, to the Farm Bill. We have, I think as Collin was saying, the structure of what we did in 2014, and we certainly are open to, obviously, we want to make things work better, and we know there are challenges. But there seems to be a lot of the structure that has worked. And so we can build on that. I mean, one of the good news items is that the Budget Office tells us if we did nothing for the next 10 years but continue the Farm Bill policies of the 14 bill, we would actually save over $80 billion, most of that on the food and nutrition side, because the economy is getting better, people go back to work, they don't need temporary food help. So the family safety net is spending less. The challenge for us is that the farm safety net has to have some additional help. And so and unfortunately, the way the Budget Office does business, as you know, we can't take any of that $80 billion, which we'd love to do, to be able to put it back to help dairy or cotton or to adjust some other things. So that will be the challenge for us as we go forward. The second thing is we've got 37 different key programs. Many were listed as I was listening to the panel on rural development, talking about beginning farmers and ranchers. By the way, one of the things I love is that in expanding to include veterans for beginning farmers. In Michigan, we have an incredible group, Michigan veteran farmers, growing literally every week with people coming home after serving our country and going back to the farm or wanting to go into farming or some part of agriculture. It's terrific. But that program we have to find money for. It's not part of the baseline. And yet we know, all of us as baby boomers, getting older, people retiring, we want to bring people, keep them on the farm, bring them back to the farm, and that is critically important to have the beginning farmers and now veterans program working. Our local food access programs, the bio-based economy. There are a whole range of things that, they're not large in dollars, any of them, but altogether, it's over $2.5 billion, and that is not in the budget. So then if we look at what else isn't in the budget, and Collin mentioned dairy, and there are, in my judgment, real issues that we need to address to help our dairy farmers, our ranchers, those who are unfortunately impacted by what we hoped would be a good margin program where the numbers just didn't hit the mark in this economy, and we've got some work to do to support dairy. And I know cotton as well is asking for additional help, and so these are two items that we have to figure out as well. And then last week, over a dozen farm groups, many of you here, asked for additional funds to strengthen the agricultural safety net programs, and are asking that we actually add additional dollars outside of agriculture. And certainly I would be willing to do that. I think it's going to be tough to do, but it's something that we certainly need to put out there. So bottom line, and you know this, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but our success last time in very difficult times, and frankly, not passing once but twice a farm bill in the Senate. I'd really like not to do that again, actually. Once was kind of enough, actually. So hopefully this time we can pass it once from the House and the Senate. But the fact, that we were able to do it was because of the incredible coalition put together. And we have to have that. We have to have it. Not only everyone representing producers, but everyone who cares about our land and our air and our water and cares about hunting and fishing and all those things that go with conservation, as well as all those who care about eating, nutrition, and local foods and opportunities for small farmers as well as large farmers, and the bio-based economy, which is so important, and all of those, forestry. I mean, we had a huge coalition. We have it again now, over 500 groups signing a letter in support of not cutting agriculture, and I think we all understand we have to keep the Farm Bill together in terms of the entire, from food policy to agriculture. But it's absolutely critical that we do that if we are going to be successful. We have new members in the Senate, as well as the House, who didn't vote on the last Farm Bill. This is new to them. So we're going to need your help in telling the story of agriculture, of small towns, of the importance of providing risk management tools in a world where the weather changes all the time and the markets are changing, and the prices, which we thought were great in 2013 when we were writing this, had no idea they'd drop 50% by now. And so that is a story that we're going to need your help in deciding and being able to tell. I will mention one other thing, not Farm Bill. There's issues of national security and whether or not they include food security. has been something that I've been very interested in. When the whole issue of Smithfield and China came up, and we held hearings about, how do we look at national security and food security and so on. Since that time, I've been working, and Senator Grassley has been working to put together legislation, which we just introduced last week, regarding CFIUS, the agency, the committee that reviews foreign purchases, as you know, of companies and technologies. And our legislation will add the head of USDA and FDA as permanent members of this committee, which is so important in reviewing what is our national security. And we also, secondarily, have language that would require that food security is part of our national security, which of course it is. So we welcome your support and help as we move through that process as well. Thanks very much.
Sarah, thank you very much. Thank you to Agri-Pulse for holding this Farm Summit and inviting me to speak today. I appreciate the opportunity to try to summarize what we're trying to do in the committee, and I'm sure that my distinguished ranking member, former chairperson of the committee from Michigan State, who lost to, what state was it? Kansas, as a matter of fact, by 20 points. And we commiserated there in the hall. But, it is what it is. Agri-Pulse in-depth series on the Farm Bill lesson serves as a valuable history. All of my committee staff is studying that. 6 books, as in, there's actually 3 and 4. 3 are the Old Testament and 4 are the New Testament. And we're on book 6, I think. Is that correct, Phil? Nod your head. And so we have one more to go. And we are trying to commit those to memory, and it is a valuable history. The articles have already kept me up at night thinking about the task that we have on the horizon. However, first things first, I'm going to share a little bit about a historical and very unprecedented wildfire that recently, it's a prairie fire, 30, 40 feet high, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Recently burned through southwest Kansas. We're a flyover state, I understand that, so there wasn't much national press on it. But parts of Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, we had fires in 21 of our Kansas counties. It burned more than 700,000 acres of land, making this the largest wildfire on a non-federal land in my home state's history, and I think probably the country. When I drove the familiar drove, this is what you do if you're on the Agriculture Committee, or what you do if you're in public service in Kansas, obviously. And we drove down from Dodge. I saw range and ranch land that I didn't even recognize. It looked like a moonscape. What used to be gently rolling prairie, dotted with herds of cattle and crisscrossed by fencing, has now been reduced to blackened dust. And march in Kansas or march anywhere when that can develop into a very severe problem just by itself. We have a lot of families who lost farmhouses and their ranches, all the equipment they need to rebuild. Many livestock producers had the gruesome task of euthanizing cattle. We've known a family for 43 years. Their kids stair-stepped with our kids. He had about 7,000 acres, had about 300 head of cattle. That's a pretty small outfit with regards to cattle. And I asked John, I said, "Where's Carol?" He said, "Well, she's out shooting cattle." They found some of them. They were able to save something early, but just stop to think about that. Some had to find land for surviving the livestock to graze, and seeing the devastation firsthand has been absolutely heart-wrenching. I've been in touch with the department with regards to assistance that is available to farmers and ranchers in counties that have suffered losses. In dire times like these, we are reminded of the importance of the Farm Bill programs and the role of the Department of Agriculture's disaster response. We've had a response earlier to another prairie fire that happened last year. Let's hope that we don't go for 3. But at any rate, some delay there, and so I think we're making progress in making sure that the assistance will be as well timed as it possibly can. We're going to try to continue to look for ways to cut through the red tape and ensure these programs are functioning as intended. You never know when a disaster will occur anywhere in farm country. More than anything, I have really been impressed by Kansans. Of course, I knew this. By the farmers, ranchers, and folks in our rural communities. They are committed to helping each other out and rebuilding. Local banker said, we don't want the help, but we need the help. No matter the challenge, our producers always come together, get to work and prevail. That's why it's called Bootstrap Kansas. And I'm also amazed at the amount of help coming from other states, from Canada, for that matter, all over the country that are at least aware of this. Our state motto is Ad astra per aspera. That's Latin for to the stars through difficulty. I would simply end this part of my remarks by saying that's not just a motto, it is actually who we are. And I'm very proud of these people for persevering. They will come back, and they will continue to help feed our state, our nation, and a troubled and hungry world. And speaking of getting to work, the immediate task at hand for the Senate Agriculture Committee this week is the nomination hearing of Governor Sonny Perdue to be our next Secretary of Agriculture. That'll be on Thursday. The committee will move as quickly as possible in a bipartisan fashion to accomplish its work and get the governor down to the department. Now more than ever, agriculture needs a voice, an advocate, a champion at the highest levels of government. As the Senate receives nominations for sub-cabinet positions and other roles within our jurisdiction, the Senate Agriculture Committee will do its work in behalf of all of our constituents. The Senate Agriculture Committee has a strong history of working in bipartisan fashion. I know that you probably are a little tired of me saying it, and for that matter, Deborah as well. I think the Ag Committee in the Senate is probably the least partisan of any committee. It's part of who we are, who we work for, than any other in the Senate. I may be wrong on that, but I think I'm right. That's because we know we either have to hang together or we hang separately, but at any rate, we are working in bipartisan fashion to take on the difficult challenges. Last Congress, we protected this country's food distribution system and the use of agriculture biotechnology by passing a biotech disclosure bill. And among other things, we beat back a $3 billion cut to crop insurance. Lord knows, I hope we don't have to go through that again. This bipartisan record can be continued this Congress. We're going to write a new farm bill, a bill that considers the needs of producers from all across the country, all of agriculture, who are facing tough economic times. We're going through a rough patch as of right now. And there are many ways we can address this, and on a couple of pages here, rather than me go on, I will get to the trade issue. I've had the unique privilege of working on 6 farm bills. I can tell you that each one is unique. If you don't believe that, read your Agri-Pulse Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. The conditions in which farm policy is crafted is never identical to previous bills. Things change. When I became chairman of the Senate committee, I said we must listen to our farmers and ranchers first. That's why we have to do that. We are not in the best place as we were when we passed the previous bill, or to put it in another way, we are going through a much rougher patch. So as we start this farm bill process, that's exactly what we're doing. After collecting all of their advice and counsel, then and only then can we produce a bill that will work for everybody. Last month, Senator Stabenow and I were in Manhattan, Kansas, home of the Little Apple, where we held the first Senate Farm Bill hearing. We are planning to head to Michigan for another field hearing, and we, of course, have hearings in Washington as well. With 600 attendants at the first hearing, and I know because McCain Hall was there when I was there. I'm not sure how that sounds. I was there at McCain, oh, never mind. and nearly thousands watching online. The fire marshal said it'll hold 600, and it held 600. We had producers from all across Kansas relay to us the difficulties they are facing with the downward trending in our farm economy, the importance of crop insurance and other risk management tools, and improvements they would like to see made in the upcoming Farm Bill. I encourage agriculture organizations and consumers and other stakeholders groups to think about the mission of the existing Farm Bill programs. Are they working as originally intended? Are our conservation programs addressing concerns of working lands, or have they been used to comply with overburdensome regulations? As another example, are rural development programs helping to increase economic opportunities in farm country, or have they been used for other purposes in urban areas? And I encourage everyone to think broadly about all of the challenges facing the food and agriculture value chain in rural America. The state of the rural economy tends to guide the crafting of a farm bill, but it is equally important to find solutions to the regulatory issues facing growers and rural businesses on a daily basis. We will search for solutions that can be woven into the Farm Bill. I would just add here at this point that every time I held a town meeting, this is pre-protester, which doesn't happen much in western Kansas, but it does around that other school as opposed to K-State. The one that's over by Baker University. But at any rate, I remember an old boy out in Wallace County. Now, Wallace County is way out there. That's the home, by the way, of Mount Sunflower. And that's the highest point in Kansas. The trick is not to climb it, the trick is to find it. But a friend of mine out there pulled on his cowboy hat and he said, "Pat, I've been supporting you all these years." He said, "But I got to tell you, this is the worst I've ever seen." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" He says, I don't feel governed, I feel ruled, all these damn fool regulations." And that was repeated over and over and over again. Everybody on Main Street, any rancher, any farmer, regardless of what they were growing. So over the last 8 years, I just simply sum up and say farmers and ranchers have been burdened by regs from agencies all across the federal government, such as, of course, the EPA, Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Labor, Department of Transportation. You could just go down the line. Burdensome, costly, and hard to understand regs hinder the ability of producers to stay in business, big time. Now, the president made headlines when he signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the infamous WOTUS rule. I was there. You can't see me in the picture. John Barrasso jumped right in front of me. That's not in the script. In that order, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt was directed to rescind and revise this widely unpopular rule. I can assure you that we in the Congress will be watching this issue very closely. Regulatory burdens are not all going to be fixed by executive order. We must work together to eliminate these costs for farmers, ranchers, and rural businesses. It is imperative that folks lay the groundwork now so that my cowboy friend out there will see once again that he is governed and be proud of his government and his country. Just last week, the administration released the budget for 2018, which included significant budgetary cuts to several agencies, including agriculture. I do applaud the new administration for providing relief on the regulatory front. We must understand there are some important missions at the USDA, EPA, and other agencies that could be helpful, actually helpful to the agricultural industry. Example, the pesticide registrant community, including large and small companies, are largely dependent on timely and predictable registration decisions from the Office of Pesticide Programs. Those decisions help provide certainty to the industry and also provide new products to growers for crop protection and to consumers to protect public health. These same farmers and ranchers must also have a strong market for their goods. That's the importance of trade. Trade for the agriculture industry. It cannot be overstated. In the last year alone, the U.S. exported over $134 billion in agriculture goods. That's billion with a B. A strong trade policy isn't just about selling what our country makes, it's about selling what we grow. A good message for our president. I haven't tweeted that yet, but I think you can help me out. There are also immediate supply and demand challenges for a number of crops. I'm ready to work with the administration to make sure that our ag producers and businesses have certainty they need to compete in the global marketplace. Last week, I had the opportunity to bring this up with Bob Lighthizer during this confirmation, that was in the Finance Committee, to become the U.S. trade representative, and he committed to being a champion for agriculture. He needs to be confirmed, and I think he will. He passed in good fashion in the Finance Committee. When I talked to him in my office, I have known Bob for 15 years and working for Rapid Robert Dole, and we remember those times very well. He actually did the trade deal with the former Soviet Union after the Carter embargo, so he dates back to that point. Those were tough times. This forum here today is a great venue to consider much of the work and conversation that lie ahead for the agriculture committees and others in the Congress. I look forward to hearing many of your thoughts and advice throughout the Farm Bill process in the weeks and months ahead. I will finish book number 7 as soon as it comes out. And as we draft the next Farm Bill, there will continue to be pressure for us all to do more with our available resources. This means we need to grow more and raise more with fewer resources. That's always been the case with every Farm Bill, with every budget that we have passed in the past. I didn't say the administration, our budget that will pass. That will take research, new technology, lines of credit, and proper risk management. It takes the government providing an adequate safety net and then getting out of the producer's way. Our farmers and ranchers are counting on us to do our work, but it's not just agriculture constituencies. We must understand what policies are necessary to meet the challenges of feeding a growing and hungry world, which will have a population, you've heard it before, you'll hear it again, 9 billion people in a few short decades. I appreciate each of you standing tall for agriculture and being a strong partner in our government. We could simply not do the job without your help and without your support and without your advice. And yes, shining the light of truth into darkness with your own inimitable flashlight, separating the wheat from the chaff, and then printing the chaff. That's a joke. Come on. I know this is a long speech and you're getting damn tired, but you know, you can get with the program. So, I guess here's the bottom line. You've been waiting for it, Phil. It's a newsbreaker. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.